Today's lesson is The Mystery of the Mary Celeste. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And today we are going to be talking about, yes, the infamous ship. I guess it's a ship. It wasn't a very big ship, maybe too big for a boat. Let's call it a ship. The Mary Celeste. Now, this is a story that caught people's attention quite a long time ago, more than 100 years ago. It was a true story, but we will give you a little bit of background information. It became very famous because a certain writer took the story and kind of, well, I don't know if you would say he embellished it, but he certainly popularized it by, I believe, adding a few facts, maybe some questionable facts into the story. And of course, that writer was a gentleman named Arthur Conan Doyle, who is famous for creating Sherlock Holmes. So creating mysteries and writing suspenseful stories that attract people's attention and their imagination was something that Conan Doyle was an expert at. So as you read stories of the Mary Celeste, it is still a very mysterious tale, but you should also kind of read things with, as we say, a grain of salt, being a little bit suspect, a little bit suspicious of what exactly is true and what might have been added to kind of make the whole story more exciting and thrilling.
Okay, so let's listen to the first part of today's lesson, The Mystery of the Mary Celeste.
The Mystery of the Mary Celeste. Ghost ships sometimes appear in tales of fiction. Such stories typically describe the mysterious events surrounding a make-believe maritime vessel. But an American merchant ship called the Mary Celeste was a real ghost ship whose story still has historians scratching their heads.
大家好，第一部分首先介绍形容词 make believe， 它的意思是假装的或是想象的。我们可以说The playroom was filled with make-believe scenarios, from pirate ships to enchanted forests. 游戏室里充满了各种假想的场景，从海盗船到魔法森林。也可以说 In her make-believe kitchen, the little girl cooked meals for her stuffed animals. 在她想象的厨房里，这个小女孩为她的毛绒玩具煮饭。接下来是单字 maritime， 这个形容词指的是航海的、海运的或是海事的。比如说There are some replica ships at the Maritime Museum. 那座航海博物馆里有一些船只复制品。或是 Maritime nations often collaborate to address issues related to ocean resources. 靠海国家经常合作以应对海洋资源相关的议题。再来看到 merchant， 它是形容词，意思是商业的、商船的或是商人的。例如Merchant ships brought news to the isolated island. 商船将消息带到那座孤岛上。或是 They entered into a merchant partnership to expand their business ventures. 他们进一步成为商业伙伴关系，以扩大他们的商业机会。另外 merchant 也可以做名词，有商人的意思。我们可以说 The merchant sold exotic spices from distant lands. 该商人贩卖来自遥远土地的异国香料。又或者说Hundreds of years ago, merchants used to travel thousands of kilometers on the Silk Road to sell their wares. 几百年前，商人会沿着丝路跋涉数千公里贩售商品。下一个是片语 scratch one's head， 它有迷惑不解或是埋头苦思的意思。例如 The unexpected results had the scientists scratching their heads. 出乎意料的结果让科学家们感到困惑。或者The puzzle was so complex that everyone was scratching their heads. 这个谜题如此复杂，让每个人都埋头苦思。
Okay, and we're back. So we're going to talk about the first part, or part one, of today's lesson. So it starts off by saying ghost ships sometimes appear in tales of fiction. Okay, so fiction is basically something that is made up or created. And usually we will see this in creative writing, and a lot of writers, they will use their imagination and create stories that sometimes might seem unbelievable. So it's kind of suggesting, like you said in our intro, this was a true story, but sometimes authors or writers can create fiction out of real, true life events. Okay, so fiction, again, is something that is made up.
Exactly. It's a story. It's not based on real events. Well, it might be loosely based on real events, but when you think of Harry Potter, when you think of James Bond, when you think of most of the popular works of literature, those will be fiction. The other side would be nonfiction. Those are true stories, stories based on news or history or real events. This definitely kind of crosses the line between fiction and nonfiction, but ghost ships have been very popular in fiction for a long time. The Flying Dutchman, that might be another one, another famous ghost ship from stories long ago. It says such stories typically describe the mysterious events surrounding a make-believe maritime vessel. Okay, that would be kind of like the Flying Dutchman, that one I mentioned to you before, because it's made up. If something is make-believe, it's fictional. It's from your imagination. It's not real. It didn't actually happen. Kids, we would say, often play make-believe when they're pretending to be things. Okay, I'll be a pilot and you be a passenger and I'll fly the plane. That kind of thing that they might pretend to play at as children. And anything to do with the ocean, yeah, we can often use this term maritime. Okay, maritime often deals with things on the ocean that aren't in the military. If it's a military ship, we would say naval vessel. But if it's a cargo ship, if it's a ship that carries passengers and not soldiers or anything, but just normal passengers, that would be maritime. Maritime history is about people and boats working on the ocean, that kind of thing. And a vessel, well, a vessel is a ship. Any ship of any size, basically. It could be a really small vessel from a little rowboat to a really big vessel like an aircraft carrier that has thousands of people on board. But if we're talking about a ship of some kind that goes on the water, or I suppose goes through space, we could also call that a vessel. Doesn't usually involve cars and trucks and trains, though. Usually it's things on the water or in space or possibly in the air, but I think aircraft would be more popular there. So make-believe maritime vessels, and one of the most famous was the Mary Celeste, which came from...
It was an American merchant ship called the Mary Celeste. Okay, so what a merchant is anything to do with business or the act of trading and selling things. So back in the olden days, when merchants, they had to travel to different lands to sell their wares or to trade things. These are what we think of merchants. They have to travel far to do their business. So merchant ships, they would carry the stuff that these merchants have to or need to sell or trade. Okay, so the Mary Celeste, was an American merchant ship, and it was a real ghost ship whose story still has historians scratching their heads. Okay, so scratching their heads is basically giving someone something to think really hard about. When you scratch your head, if you're thinking really hard about something, oftentimes we see people scratch their heads because they could be a little bit frustrated. They're just thinking, oh, I'm thinking so hard, but what is this mystery about this ghost ship? So this story of the Mary Celeste is still something that's very mysterious to a lot of historians.
Yeah, people are still looking for answers or solutions or explanations for it. That's also has to do with scratching your head. You have a problem, a puzzle, a mystery, and there doesn't seem to be a simple solution or answer for it. So you'll stand there scratching your head going, I wonder what this is all about. Well, we're going to find out what our story's all about in the next part of the article, which is coming up right now. On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York to Genoa. On board were the captain, his wife, their daughter, and 7 crew members. Just a month after it left New York, the ship was spotted drifting off the coast of Portugal. It was found to be in good shape, though a pump was broken and some seawater had entered its hull. Furthermore, no one was on board, and a lifeboat was missing. According to one theory, the ship had been attacked by pirates. However, this theory fails to explain why the ship's cargo was left untouched. Others believe aliens and flying saucers may have abducted the passengers. Perhaps the most convincing explanation is that the captain, fearing the ship might sink, decided to take the lifeboat to the nearest island.
第二部分来看到 drift， 它是动词，表示漂流或是漂移。举例来说 The survivors of the shipwreck drifted for days before being rescued. 船难幸存者获救前在海上漂流了好几天。或是 The child looked wistfully into the sky as his balloon drifted away. 这个小孩留恋地看着他的气球飘上天空。最后看到 in good shape， 这个片语的意思是状况良好或是身体健康。举例来说 The used car was still in good shape, so I bought it. 那部二手车的状态还很好，所以我买下它了。再看一个例子 Maintaining a balanced diet helps you stay in good shape. 保持均衡的饮食有助于保持良好的身体状态。
Let's find out exactly what is the mystery of this boat. It says, on November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York to Genoa. All right, so we learned it was an American boat. Of course, that means it's probably traveling from America as a merchant ship trading its goods in other parts of the world. In this case, it set sail, or it left New York, and it was headed towards Genoa, of course, one of the big ports in Italy. That's where it was going to. That's where it was bringing its goods to sell and probably to buy other goods and bring them back to America. Yes, back in those days, boats were largely, I would say in 1872, still largely relied on wind power. And if you set sail, that basically means you lift the sails on your sailboat. The sails, of course, will catch the wind, and the wind will push the boat along the surface of the water. We can also, in a more general way, to use set sail to say just leave on a boat trip or leave on a voyage by ship. Even today, even with boats powered by diesel engines and oil and gas, no sails involved, we could still say, I'm going on a cruise. Yeah, we set sail from Geelong next Saturday or something like that. It's kind of like with takeoff with an airplane, you set sail on a boat. And who was on the Mary Celeste?
Well, let's take a look. On board were the captain, his wife, their daughter, and 7 crew members.
Okay, pretty small boat.
Yeah, small boat, small crew. There weren't a lot of people. And just a month after it left New York, the ship was spotted drifting off the coast of Portugal. Uh-oh.
That's not good.
That doesn't sound very good. Okay, so they set sail. Before they arrived to where they were supposed to go, Italy, they were seen drifting. So I guess this is where the term, why they were referring to the Mary Celeste as the ghost ship. So something happened to everybody on board?
Well, it looks like it, because if a boat is drifting, that means it basically is just floating along on the water, being pushed by the waves and the wind. No one is sailing it. No one is sort of controlling it. It doesn't seem to have any purpose or direction. It's just sort of sitting there like a piece of wood or a cork, just floating on top of the water, being pushed around. What happened to the people? Why aren't the sails up? What is going on here? And when some people finally boarded it, it was found to be in good shape. So the boat seemed to be intact. It didn't have holes in the bottom, in the hull, the main bottom or body of the boat. It wasn't leaking or sinking or anything. Though a pump was broken, so one of the pumps that they use to sort of get the water out of the boat, a little bit of water will always leak into a boat generally, and some seawater had entered its hull. Again, this is pretty normal. All they would do is have someone go down and pump that water out a few times a day so that the boat doesn't sit too low in the water and slow down. But basically, the boat seemed fine, and it didn't seem to have any reason to be drifting or have any reason to be in trouble. And as it says, some seawater had entered its hull. As I mentioned, the hull is the main body of the boat. That's the part that you would put your cargo in, and the passengers would probably sleep and live in somewhere in the hull. And who was on the boat?
Nobody.
Exactly.
Nobody was on the boat.
There's the mystery.
That is a mystery because the boat looked like it was fine. It was in good shape, but no one was on board. And a lifeboat was missing.
Interesting. So the people had left the boat on purpose. They hadn't just been sort of washed overboard by a wave. They hadn't been in a big storm. Or if they had been in control enough to get off the boat using the lifeboat, but no one was on board. Now, what happened? It says, according to one theory, the ship had been attacked by pirates. Yeah, even in 1872, pirates might have been a thing. Probably not going arr and digging up treasure, but probably taking over boats and selling off the products or the goods that they were carrying, as they still do today. So some people thought it had been attacked by pirates. Pirates are basically criminals, robbers on the seas. So if you have a boat and you go around robbing other boats, stealing the things from the boat, maybe killing the people, but more likely probably just stealing their goods, taking over the boat, maybe selling the boat as well. Basically, it's an ocean-going criminal of some kind, and that might have been possible, as I said, even in 1872, but I think everything that the boat was carrying was on the boat, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we continue to find out. However, this theory fails to explain why the ship's cargo was left untouched.
These are bad pirates if they're leaving all the valuable stuff behind.
Yeah. So the theory was that the pirates came on the boat to steal everything or to steal things and hurt people and be bad guys, in the ocean, right? But they didn't. They didn't touch anything. They didn't touch the ship's cargo. So cargo is basically what a vessel or something that is being carried on a ship or aircraft or sometimes a motor vehicle like
train,
a truck or train. So cargo are things that are being transported from one place or another. And pretty much anything can be cargo. Like things you're selling, wood can be cargo. Things that have been produced can be cargo, and even animals can be cargo.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So we know that this was a merchant ship shipping things to Italy to be sold or to be traded. And the pirates, they didn't touch it. So what other types of theories did they have?
Well, the pirate theory is a pretty good one until, you discover that the cargo was untouched. They didn't steal anything. Everything that was in the hull of the boat when it left New York was still there. So these are bad pirates who didn't steal anything. And then we start to get into even stranger explanations. Others believe aliens in flying saucers may have abducted the passengers. Okay, I'm going to go on the record right now saying I don't buy this one. Aliens and flying saucers. So basically ET, or aliens, visitors from another planet, creatures who are born somewhere off and far away in space and who decided to come here and visit Earth, aliens in other words, in flying saucers, in UFOs, in unidentified flying objects. The original ones, or the old stories of flying UFOs, often had them in sort of plate-shaped spacecraft. You might see these in old 1950s science fiction movies, and it kind of looked like a saucer, which is that small cup you put underneath a teacup. Now, if you flip that small plate over that saucer, and that's what it's called, it kind of looks like what people used to describe alien spacecraft or UFOs as looking like. They're cigar-shaped, they're saucer-shaped. I've heard of triangular ones, too, as well. Basically, these are all sort of come from people's imaginations or their experiences when they see UFOs. So basically, aliens came from another planet and may have abducted the passengers. They kidnapped the passengers and brought them back to the planet wherever they're from. I'm not sure about that one. I'm kind of saying no.
I mean, they took the lifeboat, right?
That's true.
If aliens were going to abduct people, I don't think they'd have time to take their lifeboat, right?
Good point, yep.
So perhaps the most convincing explanation is that the captain, fearing the ship might sink, decided to take the lifeboat to the nearest island. Okay, that sounds a little possible that the captain knew that there was something wrong with the ship and he needed to make sure everyone on board got safe. So the most convincing explanation would be to get them off the boat. So convincing is basically when you're trying to get people to believe something. So you come up with your own proof or explanation to try to make people agree with you. And in this case, we're still trying to figure out the reason why this Mary Celeste became a ghost ship. So people had lots of explanations or theories. So an explanation is basically trying to find a way or a story to find out the truth or to explain the truth because you might not know what it really is.
Yeah, it explains it. It gives us the answer. And if it's convincing, it's believable. It's likely. It doesn't mean it's true. But compared to aliens or pirates, it's probably more likely, it's more believable or more convincing to say, oh, yeah, it was probably the captain, the crew got off the boat. They thought it was unsafe. And then something happened. Maybe the winds came up, a storm came along, the lifeboat and the Mary Celeste were separated. And that's eventually what happened to the crew and the captain and his family. All right, let's look at the final paragraph and then we'll be done. Although the Mary Celeste was considered unlucky after its recovery, it stayed in service until 1885. Still, the fate of its 10 passengers on that particular journey remains a mystery to this day. And we are back with this very brief final little paragraph that will hopefully whet your appetite and maybe get you doing your own research into the Mary Celeste. It says, although the Mary Celeste was considered unlucky after its recovery, it stayed in service until 1885. Boats are expensive. So often when you find a boat that is still in relatively good shape, even if something bad happened and all the crew and passengers disappeared, well, it's still a good boat. You'll put a new name on it. Often renaming a boat is bad luck for sailors because they know you renamed it for some reason. But it did actually stay in service for another 13 years, probably with a lot of nervous sailors working on it at that time. But what happened to the crew and the passengers?
Well, we don't know. Still, the fate of its 10 passengers on that particular journey remains a mystery to this day.
There you go. They never found them. I guess they never found the lifeboat just floating there. Never found a bunch of bodies washed up on shore somewhere.
Maybe they just didn't want to be found.
Mystery. Maybe that's it. Maybe they went to Atlantis.
Maybe.
Ooh, I don't know. We're getting into even stranger explanations here. So do your own research. Find out for yourself. It's certainly an interesting story, even if it doesn't have a satisfying end. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go over to the Chinese teacher right now.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 今天要看的文章是 The Mystery of the Mary Celeste。 那我们来看看文章里面的5个题目。第一题他提到 On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste 空格 from New York to Genoa。 那题目意思是1872年11月7日，玛丽塞勒斯特号从纽约空格前往热那亚。那么本题是测验动词片语，我们来看看选项 A gave way 表示让步屈服，后面可以接 to somebody or something。 B set sail 表示起航开船。 C broke ground 表示动工破土。 D made waves 表示引起轰动，兴风作浪，挑起事端。从第一段的课我们可以知道玛丽塞勒斯特号是一艘美国商船，那从语义上来看最适合答案会是 B set sail 来表达这艘船从纽约起航前往热那亚。第二题他提到 However, this theory fails to explain why the ship's cargo was left空格。题目意思是然而这个理论无法解释为什么船上的货物空格。那在解题之前我们要先补充一下 leave 加受词加受词补语的句型表示让使什么处于某状态。那受词补语可以是分词、形容词或介系词片语。题目的句子它是用到被动语态，所以 left 的后方呢可能是要填入形容词或分词来当作补语，让它的语义完整。好，那我们看到选项 A reserved 它是形容保留的、预定的，或是形容人是拘谨的、矜持的。 B enclosed 它是形容封闭的、随函附上的。 C untouched 它是形容完好无缺的、原封不动的。 D excluded 好，它的动词 exclude 它表示把什么排除在外，不包含点点点。那么 excluded 是当过去分词的时候表示排除点点点的。前文提到说在离开纽约1个月后，这艘船被发现在葡萄牙海岸外漂流，船况良好，但是船上空无一人，而且一艘救生艇不见了。那根据一个理论，该船遭到了海盗的袭击。那从语义上来看，最适合答案会是 C untouched， 用来表达遭海盗袭击的这个理论无法解释为何船上货物原封不动。好，再看到第3题是 Others believe aliens and flying saucers空格 the passengers。 题目意思是有些人则认为飞碟上的外星人空格乘客。那先来看选项 A may have abducted， B have been abducted， C would have abducted, D may abduct. 那这4个选项里面都有 abduct 这个动词，表示绑架、劫持、诱拐，是做及物用。那这题考我们时态。那课文是在谈说玛丽塞勒斯特号乘客消失无踪的理论。前面提到一个理论是遭到海盗袭击嘛，那题目句子应该是要提另外一个理论，也就是外星人绑架了乘客。那由于是在推测过去可能发生的事情，应该用 may have 或是 might have 加上 pp 来表达，所以我们的选项 A may have abducted 是正确的答案。好，再看到第4题，他提到 Perhaps the most 空格 explanation is that the captain, fearing the ship might sink, decided to take the lifeboat to the nearest island. 题目意思是，也许最什么什么的解释是，船长担心船可能沉没，决定乘坐救生艇到最近的岛屿。那这题是要考我们形容词，选项 A conventional 它表示传统的、常规的， B adequate 是形容足够的、合格的， C ambiguous 表示模棱两可的、含糊不清的， D convincing 表示有说服力的、令人信服的。跟课文前面提到的2个理论相比啊，这个题目句子提到的说法是比较有说服力的。那从语义上来判断，最适合的形容词就是 D convincing。那其他3个选项的形容词语义都不符合。再看到第5题，他说 Although the Mary Celeste was considered unlucky after its recovery,It 空格 until 1885。 题目意思是，尽管玛丽塞勒斯特号在修复后被认为不吉利，但它一直空格到1885年。这题考我们语义，来看选项 A came into effect 可以表达法律规则等等它生效开始实施。 B went to great lengths 表示竭尽全力不遗余力的去怎么样怎么样。 C stayed in service 可以表达在服役中，那 in service 可以用来表达船舰等等它是服役中在使用中。 D took into account 表示将什么列入考量，考虑到什么什么。那语义上来看，最适合选项会是 C stayed in service， 用来表达尽管这艘船在修复后被认为不吉利，但它一直服役到1885年。好，那以上今天的讲解，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Fiction. Reading fiction allows us to escape into imaginative worlds beyond our own. Vessel. The fishing vessel returned to port with a large catch of fish. Merchant. The city's merchant district is particularly busy from morning to early afternoon. Drift. When the boat lost power, it began to drift farther and farther from the shore. Pirate. Upon reaching the small island, the pirates buried some of the treasure they had stolen. Cargo. The warehouse was filled with boxes of cargo awaiting delivery. Alien. Looking at the strange creature, Elliot wondered if it was an alien from another planet. Explanation. The teacher provided a clear explanation of the complex concept.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Kiki.
See you next time.